Hello there! Welcome to a new live stream. And we are going to read again one of the wonderful stories of H.P. Lovecraft. With me is Nicholas. Hi, Nicholas. Good evening.
Hey Pat, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here and for reading this with me. This is going to be a really short story, which is not what we have been used to. Even though we have been reading certain chapters, this story in particular is smaller than the usual ones are that we are tend to read at the times that we have been doing the live stream. So at first, let me say thank you for thank you for watching this live stream. Right now we are going to read the story and we're going to do a small commentary. Today is going to be something special because we're not going to stay for long, but we're going to do our best to read what we have here, and try to do our commentary. Do you have something to say about this story, Nicholas,
Yeah,
before we
sure.
start?
Sure. Thanks so much for coming, guys. I would say that this one is going to be very different than our other streams. Usually we're reading a short story and we break it up into chapters, so we have multiple videos. This is going to be a one-shot, one-off, because we're reading The Descendant by H.P. Lovecraft. It's a story fragment. It wasn't published until after his death. It was published posthumously. So it is interesting, and I think it's especially interesting for people that are really interested in using interesting a lot, piecing together how Lovecraft worked and how his work developed over the years, because this is evidence of something that I think he put together at some point and never really developed. I think he took some of these characters and maybe used them in these ideas in other places.
Mhm.
And it's got the great Lovecraft style, at which we can talk about after we've read it.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to mention and that crossed my mind before we start reading, do you think that this could be a perfect bedtime story? Not for kids though, but for like you and me, like to read before going to bed.
I don't think so, no, because I think that this story sort of gets your imagination going, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of makes you hungry for more. I
Oh,
don't feel like there's a satisfying end to this, and so I don't know. It would depend on taste, but this would not be my first suggestion for a bedtime read. No.
oh, okay. So that might be that instead of having dreams, you will start having nightmares, I guess, with
Uh,
all the.
or just
Uh-huh.
wondering where this story could have gone. You know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, then. First of all, I'm going to share the link here. Okay, so this is in the public domain. Everyone can access to it. So the name of the short story that we are going to read right now is The Descendant from H.P. Lovecraft. So right now I'm going to share the screen and we're going to check this. Okay. There you go. If you can start, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
In London, there is a man who screams when the church bells ring. He lives all alone with his street cat in Gray's Inn, and people call him harmlessly mad. His room is filled with books of the tamest and most puerile kind, and hour after hour he tries to lose himself in their feeble pages. All he seeks from life is not to think. For some reason, thought is very horrible to him, and anything which stirs the imagination he flees as a plague. He is very thin and gray and wrinkled, but there are those who declare he is not nearly so old as he looks. Fear has its grisly claws upon him, and a sound will make him start with staring eyes and sweat-beaded forehead. Friends and companions he shuns, for he wishes to answer no questions. Those who once knew him as scholar and aesthete say it is very pitiful to see him now. He dropped them all years ago, and no one feels sure whether he left the country or merely sank from sight in some hidden byway. It is a decade now since he moved into Gray's Inn, and of where he had been he would say nothing till the night young Williams bought the Necronomicon.
Williams was a dreamer and only 23. And when he moved into the ancient house, He felt a strangeness and a breath of cosmic wind about the grey, Weisman man in the next room. He forced his friendship where all friends that dared not force theirs, and marvelled out at the fright that sat upon this gaunt, haggard watcher and listener. For that the man always watched and listened, no one could doubt. He watched and listened with his mind more than with his eyes and ears, and strove every moment to drown something in his ceaseless poring over gay, insipid novels. And when the church bells rang, he would stop his ears and scream, and the grey cat that dwelt with him will howl in unison till the last peal died reverberantly away. In my case, it's a dog, but in this case, the gray cat. Okay, you can continue.
But try as Williams would, he could not make his neighbors speak of anything profound or hidden. The old man would not live up to his aspect and manner, but would feign a smile and a light tone and prattle feverishly and frantically of cheerful trifles, his voice every moment rising and thickening till at last it would split in a piping and incoherent falsetto. That his learning was deep and thorough, his most trivial remarks made abundantly clear, and Williams was not surprised to hear that he had been to Harrow and Oxford. Later, it developed that he was none other than Lord Northam, of whose ancient hereditary castle on the Yorkshire coast so many odd things were told. But when Williams tried to talk of the castle, and of its reputed Roman origin, he refused to admit that there was anything unusual about it. He even tittered shrilly when the subject of the supposed crypts, when the subject of the supposed under crypts, hewn out of the solid crag that frowns on the North Sea, was brought up.
So matters went till that night when Williams brought home that infamous Necronomicon of the mad Arab Abdul Azared. He had known of the dreaded volume since his 16th year, when his dawning love of the bizarre had led him to ask queer questions of a bent old bookkeeper in Chandos Street, and he had always wondered why men paled when they spoke of it. The old bookseller had told him that only 5 copies were known to have survived and shocked edicts of the priests and lawgivers against it, and that all of these were locked up with frightened care by custodians who had ventured to begin a reading of the hateful black letter. But now, at last, he had not only found an accessible copy, but had made it his own at a lucratively low figure. It was at a used stop in the squalid precincts of Clare Market, where he had often bought strange things before, and he almost fancied and garnered old Livett smiled amidst tangles of beard as the great discovery was made. The bulky leather cover with the brass clasp had been so prominently visible, and the price was so absurdly slight.
The one glimpse he had had of the title was enough to send him into transports, and some of the diagrams set in the vague Latin text excited the tensest and most disquieting recollections in his brain. He felt it was highly necessary to get the ponderous thing home and begin deciphering it, and bore it out of the shop with such precipitate haste that the old Jew chuckled disturbingly behind him. But when at last it was safe in his room, he found the combination of black letter and debased idiom too much for his powers as a linguist, and reluctantly called on his strange, frightened friend for help with the twisted medieval Latin. Lord Northam was simpering inanities to his streaked cat and started violently when the young man entered. Then he saw the volume and shuddered wildly, and fainted altogether when Williams uttered the title. It was when he regained his senses that he told his story, told his fantastic figment of madness in frantic whispers, lest his friend be not quick to burn the accursed book and give wide scattering to its ashes.
There must, Lord Northend whispered, have been something wrong at the start, but it would never have come to a head if he had not explored too far. He was the 19th Baron of a line whose beginning went uncomfortably far back into the past. Unbelievably far, if vague tradition could be heeded. But there were family tales of a descent from pre-Saxon times, when a certain Canius Gavinius Capito, military tribune in the Third Augustan Legion, then stationed at the Lindum in Roman Britain, had been summarily expelled from his command for participation in certain rites unconnected with any known religion. Gabinius had, the rumors ran, come upon a cliffside cavern where strange folk met together and made the elder sign in the dark. Strange folk whose the Britons knew not save in fear, and who were the last to survive from a great land in the west that had sunk, leaving only the islands with the wraths and the circles and shrines of which Stonehenge was the greatest. There was no certainty, of course, in the legend that Gavinius had built an impregnable fortress over the forbidden cave and founded a line which Pict and Saxon, Dane and Norman were powerless to obliterate, or in the tacit assumption that from this line sprang the bold companion and lieutenant of the Black Prince whom Edward III created Baron of Northam. These things were not certain, yet they were not often told, and in truth the stonework of Northam kept it not alarmingly like the masonry of Hadrian's Wall. As a child, Lord Northam had had peculiar dreams when sleeping in the older parts of the castle, and had acquired a constant habit of looking back through his memory for half amorphous scenes and patterns and impressions which formed no part of his waking experience. He became a dreamer who found life tame and unsatisfying, a searcher for strange realms and relationships once familiar, yet lying nowhere in the visible regions of earth.
Filled with a feeling that our tangible world is only an atom in a fabric vast and ominous, and that unknown domains press on and permeate the sphere of the known at every point. Northam in youth and young manhood drained in turn the founts of formal religion and occult mystery. Nowhere, however, oh, nowhere, however,
Mhm.
could he find ease and content. And as he grew older, the staleness and limitations of life became more and more maddening to him. During the 90s, he dabbled in Satanism, and at all times he devoured avidly any doctrine or theory which seemed to promise escape from the close vistas of science and the dully unvarying laws of nature. Books like Ignatius Donnelly's chimerical account of Atlantis he absorbed with zest, and a dozen obscure precursors of Child Fort enthralled him with their vagaries. He would travel leagues to follow up a furtive village tale of abnormal wonder, and once went into the desert of Arabia to seek a nameless city of faint report, which no man has ever beheld. There rose within him, the tantalizing faith that somewhere an easy gate existed, which, if found, would admit him freely to those outer deeps whose echoes rattled so dimly at the back of his memory. It might be in the visible world, yet it might be only in his mind and soul. Perhaps he held within his half explored brain that cryptic link which would awaken him to elder and future lives in forgotten dimensions, which would bind him to the stars and to the infinites and eternities beyond them.
Wow, uh this was really short.
Yeah, yeah, sure was. Yeah, just a story fragment, like I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell it was just a fragment. From which fragment? I mean, from which short story it came from, you know?
No, no, I think I'm not certain, but I'm thinking that somebody just found this, that this was
Mhm.
never developed further. Now, there's a couple
It's,
references in it that seem like they might have been picked up in other stories, like this nameless city mentioned.
mm-hmm,
There is a story that we haven't read yet called The
mm-hmm.
Nameless City, and so it might be this character going in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I'm guessing that this could have been like maybe 3 or 4 chapters to explain everything because he just like started.
yeah, yeah. In
It's
fact,
just like the start.
the very opening of it, to me, it almost looks like notes for a story.
Uh-huh.
Like he's setting this up. Okay, this is the guy. This is how
Hmm.
people think of him and stuff like that. And then he's going to tell the story. And then, yeah, he seems to be developing this further. But that's all that we have for Descendant.
And I think there's also something that I want to rescue here, that the narrator is nothing, I mean, it's nowhere to be found, let's say. I mean, I it doesn't say, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like the narrator is not from the story.
yeah. There's no first person narration. That's right. Yeah,
Exactly. So this person is just telling the story in the third person, but it's not there. He's looking at things, but he's not there. I mean, I cannot have any emotions for anyone. It's just like starting. Wow.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There's not a lot here, and that's why when you said, I wonder if this could be a good bedtime story. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I just don't think it's there. I think you'd be sitting there
Mhm.
wanting to write a story after this or read another one.
Yeah, exactly. This is like a just like a piece of a chapter.
Yeah.
I
Just
wonder, I wonder, I wonder if Lovecraft was just writing this and then he passed, and that's why this was like the normal thing that we usually do. We write something, we do something, we leave it there undone, and then we come back to finish it.
well, I have to disagree with you there. As a writer myself, I will say I have hundreds, if not thousands, of beginnings of projects that I probably will
Uh-huh.
never finish. And I imagine that it was like that for him. I bet you there was just drawers of notes and things like that for him.
Would you have this? I mean, let's say this amount of I don't know, writing in just one short story without finishing it,
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
it
easily, yeah.
seems
Like
like
he could have written this in 1 or 2 sittings. Yeah,
because it seems like it was quite a lot. I mean, he was already getting the plot.
he's getting there. Yep.
He was getting there. I mean, he was actually explaining the second character because the first one was, let's say, almost explained, because
Right.
you have this crazy, let's say, crazy guy. I think it's the Baron of Northern, and then Williams, which is a neighbor. And this is like the normal typical guy, and this one is the other one that is going to tell the crazy story of why he went mad when he saw that
Right.
Necronomicon. Oh.
Right, but I'm pleased that this was published, but I'm not surprised that there were so many unfinished things by Lovecraft, because I heard one author say it once that
Mm-hmm.
developing stories is like working in a garden, and if you become a good gardener, you're going to get a lot more seeds.
Yeah.
And so I think it's pretty typical for an artist to have a lot of unfinished work. And this was a good insight to see this is how he started. I think somebody else could take this and they could make a Lovecraftian story if they wanted.
I wonder I wonder also if this was written just before he passed, or this was something before from all the stories that we have been reading.
I think it's probably after some of the stories that we've been reading, but probably before the unnamed city. If we look at
Okay.
the page, uh, the publication dates that he has. Oh, this is very much zoomed in.
Okay,
Okay.
it was written on 18th of September of 1925,
Yeah,
which
so that's fairly early. Yeah,
which is kind of interesting.
I
I
think
wonder.
I think the Call of Cthulhu was after that, like 1928 or something, right? Oh, 1926. Yeah, so this is before Call of Cthulhu.
Okay, I'm going we need to see this. Wait. I need to share again. Hold it. Okay, I don't know if you can see my screen.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's what I was expecting. Yeah.
So this is how it started.
Excuse me,
This is
just
how
a
it is.
second. It sounds like I'm having quite a storm, and I might lose power right away. Just give me a second. If I
Okay.
disappear, that's I've lost internet, so you'll have to come
Okay.
short me. I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay. Okay, but you're still here, right? Okay. Yes. Okay, so what I'm going to say is that this is something really crazy because we are actually looking at something that might have been from H.P. Lovecraft, which is also in the Wikipedia, and that's why we're watching this. I'm sharing this with all of you, and it's interesting because he actually has something here. He wrote the name of the story. He have the year here, like in the first part, which is 1926. I have something drawn here. He was writing something here to start with,
Hmm.
right? And all of this writing.
I was really expecting that. Yeah, it would be handwritten and with a lot of things crossed out and things because when we read this copy, the guy's name is Gnaeus,
Mhm.
starting with a G, or with a C. But when I looked at the Lovecraft wiki, they called him Lunaeus. Uh, and so I guess that the reason for the discrepancy is it was just really impossible to decipher what he had actually written.
Okay. Do you think this might be the letter? I mean, the handwriting from H.P.
Yeah, for
Lovecraft?
sure. Yeah, I think that it definitely is. I think the stuff at the top probably isn't like the C 1926. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's him. Oh, we could
Yeah,
compare
really
it.
good handwriting.
Oh, you think so? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for being this like a something that it was scratch, scratch paper. Like he was writing this like on the back of answer of examination questions from an international correspondence school, right? Had class
Yeah,
letters and numbers and all of this written there, and he just used it to write on the other side.
yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, I
And
really
yeah,
like
you
it.
could,
I mean, this is part of the story. This is You can imagine what he was feeling when he was writing this, and there are fluids. I mean, I love to see this, and even though there are certain things he wanted to match the way that someone will be reading this, so it will be in verse, not exactly as a poem, but it will try to rhyme, I think, because there are certain words that will rhyme when you were reading this story. Maybe he was thinking about doing a poem with this, but he just decided to write it as a short story, I guess.
it's possible, but like I think Lovecraft, I think Poe, and I think Coleridge, and a lot of other authors. It just sounds good. Like our brain, that's how our brain works. It's almost like a rapper when they're freestyling. Like their
Hmm.
mind finds the right word that sort of sounds similar. so that there's sort of this repetition. And but he, you could be right too, because Lovecraft did a lot of poetry. Like we talked in an earlier broadcast about how he would do
Hmm.
his basically a trolling against that one author in rhyme. He sent them like
Yeah,
something like 1,000 letters or something. I forget how many. That's how he was discovered.
but he
So,
does have poems.
yeah, yeah. So he was skilled in that, and he did like doing that. So you could be right, but I don't think that
Hmm.
rhyming is necessarily a sign that someone uh, is planning to change that into verse. Not necessarily.
But yeah, not necessarily. I'm just like, getting different ideas. Look, this part, I'm just going to um been talking a little bit about this writing, but it's funny because this is one of the parts that we have been talking about Lovecraft for a very long time, and saying that he always needed an editor. He's using here watcher and listener, and again watched and listened, and
Yeah,
then again in the next sentence, watched and listened. Again, like three times the same phrase, like in three different, like
yeah,
three different sentences by following one after another.
yeah. And I think that repetition can be really, really good. It can be very useful. But I think, yeah, as you're pointing out there, it was probably a mistake and it did need a rewrite. We can't fault him for this. He didn't publish this, so
Yeah,
if he went
of
through it
course,
again, I'm
someone
sure he
did.
would have changed a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like he was doing that. I'm guessing that he write it like in one, just you know, at one time, and then the next time he's starting to scratch everything just you know, to have it better, and then
Mhm.
he left it there, I guess.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it, but I assume that he would have typed things before he submitted them to a publisher. But I'm not certain about that.
Mm.
I will say, as I'm reading this again, I feel a little bit sorry for him because I don't think that he was aware that a lot of the theosophists and things that he was reading were just making up things. I don't know if he would have cared, but uh, like this reference to Atlantis, and
Hmm.
this guy is just discredited. He was in the same lines as Helena Blavatsky, and
Okay.
so it's not about history or anything like this. It's about storytellers that pretended to be telling histories.
Mm. Well, maybe he already knew about that, but
Yeah, he might have. Yeah, yeah.
hmm.
I hope he did because I think that stuff's great to check out and enjoy if you know. Like I love watching Ancient Aliens, the series, and
Hmm.
that is just made up stuff after made up stuff after lies. Like that's all the show is, but they're really really interesting lies and made up stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that at least he has somewhere to get that information from, and because this is science fiction or just a fictional story, it's not it's
Yeah, it
not going
doesn't
to
need
hurt
to be
anyone.
real.
Hopefully, he knew
Yeah,
that this was not, you know, it wasn't real. It was not real. Yeah.
yeah. One thing that I do find interesting is the line about uh, to escape the close vistas of science and the dully unvarying laws of nature. And that seems to be a different direction for him. Usually, science is this sort of forbidden enterprise that's sort of like it's closed minded. Yes, it's got
Uh-huh.
these close vistas, but it's constantly expanding out to reveal these horrible mysteries that, usually it's religion that has blocked you from knowing these. That you have these superstitions, but these superstitions keep you safe. And science is the scientist in these stories is always the one that's interested in answering the questions that should not be answered. Whereas the suggestion
Hmm.
that there's these dully unvarying laws of nature, it doesn't connect it with that horror of true reality that he usually has in his stories.
Maybe that's why he didn't decide to, go through with this story.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
I mean, I don't know. I wonder if this was something that he was deciding to write about, or if this was someone that asked him to write this for, a publication or for a magazine, and he was starting, and then they decided to cut him off, and then he just left it
There was a few times
because this.
where
Huh?
There's a few
Yeah,
times
go
where I
ahead.
thought that he was speaking about himself almost again, where he's talking about
Mhm.
all these people that he hasn't talked to since falling out of school, and that he used to be famous, and people don't know if he just left or just disappeared. And the people that see him as this sort of frail individual, and they feel it's pitiful to see him. Those are all aspects that I think could have described Lovecraft. So I feel
Yeah.
like he was his own inspiration in a lot of these stories.
Mhm.
Can you think of anything else to mention? Because this is just a story fragment. I'm not sure about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't have enough arguments to say about this short story. I was hoping to have something else, but it was just like a plain story with two characters and just a little bit of the explanation of why this neighbor that considers William as a friend or whatever, like, was like, it fainted, and then he was telling a story, and then the story was there, and that's it. it
Yep.
it died there.
Yep.
So, um as I said before, I think it has a little bit more of the stories of the last short stories that we have been reading, which has to do with, a different religion and cults and voodoos and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Right? This is not about like the first story that we read from him. So this is something completely different.
I like that when he mentions the mad Arab Abdul Al Hazred,
Mhm.
that he gives the exact same title to him as before. It's almost like calling him like Lord So and So. Every word is the same. He is the mad Arab Abdul Al Hazred. He's doesn't change any of that. So almost like this man has earned the distinction of being called mad.
Yeah, and the Necronomicon, it's not being mentioned that much. It was
Right.
just like it was burned. That's it.
Oh, well, actually, no, uh, he was saying he wanted it
Okay, let's
burned.
be not quick to burn the cursed book, but he wanted to burn it.
Yeah, exactly. He said, "Lest he not be quick," meaning
Yeah, but that
he
means
told them this so that he would be quick to burn it and spread the ashes far.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that means that they didn't decide to open the book, or if they wanted to open the book, they didn't decide to like to do it. They just left it there.
yeah,
I
we
think the
didn't get to
story
that. Yeah,
exactly. I think if Lovecraft will have like start talking a little bit more about that will have been really interesting, because that's
yeah.
I think that's the part that we're missing from the story. That what happened with this book,
Hmm.
right?
And a really interesting direction that he could go with the spreading of the ashes. Did you ever see Night of the Living Dead? I think that's what it was called, or Return of the Living Dead,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
where they find this old body of this, like, animated with all this, like, it's animated by this chemical, and
Mm-hmm.
they decide to burn it. And by burning it in the incinerator, they release all the ashes into the sky, and then the
Uh-huh.
sky, it rains like it's doing tonight here, and it ends up animating all the dead in the area. So, like, doing something like that would be really cool.
Imagine.
Yeah, where they try to get rid of this horrible book that should have never been written, but they actually spread its evil by accident. That would be neat.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that we don't know exactly what this book is all about.
Yeah, yeah,
So there have been lots of things to explore, like in the following chapters that they didn't come, right? So we have lots of things that we're missing.
yep, yep, for sure. It reminds me of, I forget what the book is called, but there's this book that's totally in cipher. It may not actually have meaning. It may just be gibberish, but people have been trying to decrypt it for years. And it's much like the drawings of Leonardo da Vinci or someone, where there's all
Hmm.
these very nicely drawn images and notes, but because the notes are in this gibberish or cipher, people can't understand what the notes say. So you can just
Oh,
look at the pictures and sort of guess at what these things are. And some of the pictures are pretty interesting.
I
Yeah,
mean that will have been really good to have the at least to have certain images from the book.
yeah, yeah. Like they do talk a little bit about it, about vague Latin text, um, and the diagrams. But yeah, we don't get into any details yet.
I
I,
mean,
I think I think we will come across details for the Necronomicon in the future.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I will have been satisfied if he would have used like the same things that he used in the Call of Cthulhu, like those words, like strange words that you can even pronounce,
Oh, right, yeah, yeah. That
right?
doesn't
So
exist here at all, does it? Yeah.
exactly. So just like just throw there some lyrics there just to make the book more interesting, or just to make it more, I don't know, mysterious, because the book is mysterious by itself. And I think if you can only get the Necronomicon, I think it's, yeah,
Yeah.
the Necronomicon, just out of this and put it as, as the name of the short story, I think that will be like a good one.
Yeah, yeah, and
Because what do you think about the name? I mean, the title of this short story, The Descendant.
oh, I really love it because it has the double meaning. One that descends, like
Mhm.
usually we think of a descendant as somebody that's from a lineage, so which is really important to Lovecraft. These blood lineages are really important to determining someone's character and their sort of destiny and fate and proclivities. And
Which
yet,
is like showing into this Baron of Northern, right?
exactly, exactly, yep.
Okay.
And but there's also the other meaning, I think, which is
Hmm.
like one that descends, um, which is a little bit of a stretch. But this idea of going deep into these dark places which are forbidden, uh, maybe the descendant is him. Maybe he descended into into some cave and saw horrible things that the Necronomicon is going to talk about.
Yeah.
I like the opening that it's this man that's just absolutely disturbed by church bells, uh, because church bells would have been a very very common thing in all the communities that Lovecraft was in, and he probably detested them. He probably really didn't like Christian religion, uh, but the idea that most people would take from someone that would respond this way is that they're kind of demon possessed a little bit. That like the church bells are supposed to scare away the demons,
Yeah,
and so if they're
exactly.
mixing you up, then you've got the demon in you.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Because that's how they did it at that time, I guess. They were just like trying to do something in the church, or trying to like to ring the bells to at in the morning, just to get um all of the demons away. I think I
Yeah,
read a certain story a long time ago,
yeah,
which is really interesting.
yeah, yeah. And like there's a lot of different religions and traditions that have that. I don't think that that's alive in the church anymore, but definitely these ideas of making loud sounds to scare away evil demons or bad spirits. Yeah, it exists in a lot of things. So, like I forget what it's called right now, but the Chinese fireworks festival that they have every year, that that's to get this ghost away. That's like, if you're not supposed to go out after dark because of this ghost that could come and bite you.
Mm-mm.
And
Well, I
like,
think every single culture will have something like that.
yeah, exactly. All Hallows Eve is a replacement. It's sort of a Christianization of an old ritual where people would dress up in these scary masks once a year to scare away the demons. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All Hallows Eve, we know as Halloween, generally in common culture.
Yeah. Okay, what else can we check from this story? Um, well, I think that's about it because we don't know enough. We have certain connotations here. We have certain. I mean, this is a story as always, but Lovecraft have been investigated and have put it so much effort, and I can tell in certain parts, obviously. But then he just stopped. So that's the only thing that I could like rescue in the end.
Yeah, he was so short of money. I wonder if maybe he ran out of paper at that point. He's
Mm,
writing something on the back of something else.
yeah. So I think there is more than meets the eye. So there might have been something that stopped him from writing this because I think this had a great future. Like in the right hands, it will have like a great future, like
Hmm.
with a really good story, a really good plot. But it's not done. But it was a good story nevertheless.
Yeah. And there are some really golden lines filled with a feeling that our tangible world is only an atom in a fabric vast and ominous, and that unknown domains press on and permeate the sphere of the known at every point. Yeah,
That's the normal line of H.P. Lovecraft, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. uh, what else? Yeah, I think that's about it. So do you want to wrap this up?
Sure, yeah. Well, it was really nice to do a shorter one this time.
Hmm. And there are shorter ones, by the way.
There's even shorter ones than
There are
that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. One of the stories that it's called He, which is also written by Lovecraft, it's a shortened one
Okay. Well, it might be another
than
story
this one.
fragment. It might be another story fragment. I'm not sure. But yeah, we could check it out. I really like that we did a short one this time, not doing too much. Do you know what you want to do next week?
He.
He?
Yeah, it
Okay.
could be the next week to check this out.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well then, thank you so
Okay,
much to all
then.
our viewers and anybody that wants to check out He. Check us out next week.
Yeah, and anyone that wants to comment from the story that we have already read, which is called The Descendant, please do it in the comment down below. Just like a quick disclaimer, right now we are thinking of different kind of projects. So you can follow Nicholas in his YouTube channel. You can follow me as well if you haven't. Then thank you if you are a new subscriber, or thank you if you are coming here just to listen to us. Briefly, we're going to be sharing with you guys different other platforms that you can follow us, that we can also going to start reading over there.
Yeah.
Right now, also Nicholas is starting his Twitch channel. So I'm wondering if you can post your Twitch channel around in the comment section if you want, Nicholas. So
Yeah, yeah,
if
I'll do
people
that.
want to follow you.
I will do that. I will put in the comments a link to my channel for Twitch, and yeah, and then you'll be able to see my name because I didn't put anything in the live chat today, and you can check that out. Right now, I'm working on going through. Well, I'm playing a few video games because of Switch, but I'm also reading 1984. I'll probably reread 1984 in a couple months. But right now I'm going through it. I've done the first four chapters already, and then I'm probably going to do Brave New World by Alex Huxley, uh, and we'll see that'll probably get me through a couple months, and then we'll see if people are following me on Twitch and if it's a platform I can build on, because all of these platforms are just so vast. I don't think anybody's finding us.
Well, we just have to find the best audience and just try to and keep it up.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to work hard, and maybe we're not being that consistent because of our own schedules, but we will try to fix that. We will try to fix that, even though it's hard sometimes when you want to try and do a good editing and try to have something really good for the public. But as I said, we are all ears, we're all eyes. We can check what you want to say to us, if there is something that we need to improve, or if there is something that you want us to read out loud and you want to comment with us, then we are open to any suggestion or to any comment. So please, Nicholas, if you have something else to say.
Uh, Thanks so much. And even if I don't find an audience in my lifetime, I know of many great authors and artists that found an audience after their deaths. So I look forward to all of you people in the internet future that may find me. See ya.
Well, thank you, Nicholas, for being here, and thank you for everyone that is going to be watching this live stream. My name is Pat. I think I have already mentioned, and I hope you guys to enjoy this live stream. And if you have been until here, I am really thankful for that. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys soon.